Welcome to the first ever episode of the Project Reinvented podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan John McRae. Now, today's guest is a prime example of why I started this show. His reinvention story will blow you away. 18 years in prison, living the gang life to a life of inspiration. His journey is a testament to the transformative power of choice. Now, today we're going to explore the depths of adversity and the heights of personal empowerment. Sonny Von Cleveland, he's the director of the Von Cleveland Foundation. He is on a mission to make the world a better place through mindset and personal development. Now, Sonny will delve into the impact of choice. He does this through his memoir, Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption. He also has a podcast called The Choice Effect. He's a motivational speaker, a personal growth coach, and he guides others on this path of self-improvement, empowering others to face challenges and continue to grow. So let's welcome our force for positive change, the director of the Von Cleveland Foundation, the author of Hey White Boy, The Conversations of Redemption, and the host of The Choice Effect, Mr. Sonny Von Cleveland. What struck me straight away was you were an innocent child. You know, you were riding, you know, going to your grandmother's house, and you had the Amish men. You'd seen them in the horse and carriage, and you were thinking these pure innocent thoughts, like, I wonder if they want to see the ocean as much as I do, you know, and I wonder if the horses are happy, you know, and
yeah,
that is just you know, pure innocent thoughts. But from that moment, things took a change for you. And, you know, just take as long as you want. If you want to just take us back and just, because I've had the benefit of reading your book. You know, I've had the benefit of reading your book, but people here won't have read your book. And I advise you to definitely read the book. It's Hey White Boy, you know, it's, but we'll give you all the links, but it's Conversations of Redemption. And we're going to go through it here today. So over to you, Sonny.
Now give me 1 second so I can plug in my computer so it doesn't die. Just last second thought there that we might be here for a while because it is a deep story.
It is, mate, and I was in
at a
tears,
very young age.
You know, and I've got a young son, so, you know, I was so emotionally connected to your story because, yeah, you know, you had the same thoughts as any child does, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember, you know, we would be driving to Grandma's house all the time, and I would see all, you know, the Amish people in their horse and buggy, and I was a big Jimmy Buffett fan, and so Jimmy Buffett always sang about the ocean, and so when we'd be driving in the car, you know, in my young mind, I couldn't even conceive what the ocean was. You know, I mean, I'm from this small little town in Michigan, and, you know, the biggest thing I would always wonder, like, if the horses were happy. That was always my thing. Like, could you imagine being a horse and you just got these blinders on and there's just cars just whipping by? And I was always like, I wonder if those horses are happy. You know, and it was really the identity of what kind of kid I was. You know, I was a very outgoing, compassionate, kind, and gregarious young man. And, you know, going to Grandma's house was just a big event for me. I always enjoyed it. And, you know, and then tragedy happens.
You know, and yeah, you know, and I don't know how much you want to go into it, you know, and
I'll go into all of it. It's,
yeah, because this show's real.
Know, the molestation is a real thing. You know, it happens to 1 in 6 boys are molested in this, in this, I don't know if it's the world or if it's just this country, but it happens a lot, you know, and my Uncle Mike was my first perpetrator. And, you know, so going to Grandma's house used to be fun. And it was, and I mean, this is only at 5 years old, right? Like, you shouldn't even be, a child shouldn't even be having to think about these kinds of things at the age of 5. But, you know, I would play on the stairs and, you know, my adventurous little mind would get the best of me. And as I'd get up there, you know, I seen him up there and he was naked one day and he caught me looking at him and I'm like, oh no. And he said, oh, no, come on in, come in. He put on a robe and, you know, have you seen the Atari before? And I didn't know what an Atari was. And that was the way that he pulled me in. I was fascinated by this video game. I was like, oh, this is just intense. And so he would taught me how to play pole position. and I don't even understand what's happening as it's happening. You know what I mean? He's diddling me and molesting me, and I don't know. I'm so fixated in on this game, and he knows that, right? Like the perpetrators know these things, and they know how to occupy young minds. And yeah, it became a very tragic ordeal, because it no longer was fun for me. It was no longer fun going over to grandma's house, and I knew that this was going to happen. And so I I I think this is an incident where I psychologically learned how to defend myself mentally from mental trauma. Is I would just lose myself in the game, and whatever was happening externally, I just didn't pay attention to it. I would focus over there. And with that comes all the threats of, if you say anything, I'll have to hurt you, I'll hurt your mom, have to hurt our family. And you turn the victim into the fault bearer. I'm the one that has the burden of fault here. If I say something, well, then everybody's gonna get hurt, and that's gonna be my fault. And so you want to protect the people around you, and of course, as a child that's being abused, that is going to come out in another way. And for me, it was breaking the law. And this had happened for a couple of years. And then when I was 7 years old, I innocently, it wasn't connected, but my brother and I broke into a church. We saw an event that was happening over there. We weren't allowed to engage because we're not Catholic. And so when that event was over, we were like, well, I want some pudding and I want some stuff too. So we broke into the basement of this church and stole some pudding cups and playing cards, and we got caught, of course. And that's when I really discovered that if I get into trouble, all these men go away. And that was, no, obviously nobody wants to be molesting a kid that's on probation or in the eyes of the authorities all the time. And so that became my defense mechanism. Like, okay, I'll take a little bit of an ass whooping from my mother. I'll get put on some probation, but the men will go away. Because after my uncle, then my mom's boyfriend started, and then a family friend, and it almost was like I had a sign on me that was like, hey, go ahead and molest me. I'm trustworthy. You can go ahead and molest me. I'm not going to say anything. And so when I did say something, all those threats, they came to pass, not in the way that he had intended, but when he got caught and went to prison, my whole family broke apart. Half the family thought I was lying. The other half of the family blamed me. And, there was no more cousins and aunts and uncles and holidays and get-togethers at grandma's house. And it was all my fault,
Yeah. And as a child, I think it's for us as adults and looking back, and we can say, why didn't you just tell someone, why? But when you're getting threatened, you're this young child, and your uncle's threatening your mother and threatening your family, and you are scared, and that fear, because you don't know any different. You don't know that that he's just doing this so that you don't tell. But for a child, that is such a scary thing. You love your mother more than anything. And
Sure.
Then, as you said there, you're putting that on, you're saying this is my fault. And that's what you said in the book as well. These, I can't remember the exact words, but these guys, and then you thought it was normal. You thought that was normal, a normal part of life, and, for a young child to think that is normal, and then you use your criminal activity as a defense mechanism, to protect yourself. And that's, I could only imagine what's going through your mind at that there, because now you're using, you're thinking, right, okay, well, if I get into trouble, then these guys will stop going away. So it's the lesser of two evils for you.
Sure. Yeah, and it's and the whole time it's happening, they're trying to figure it out as well. Right? Like the adults on the justice system and my mother, and they're all trying to figure out why are you such a bad kid? What's going on? And I constantly hear there's no such thing as a bad kid. You're making bad choices. But I can't say anything because the first time I said something, my uncle gets in trouble and goes to prison, and my whole family got destroyed. So I learned at an early age, don't say anything, just shut up and just deal with it, right? And then again, the normalcy factor comes into play. So I don't know who's supposed to be doing this to me and who's not, and who's actually a bad guy and who's not. And so it got so commonplace that I accepted whatever it was. Like this just must be the way that men show affection or care towards a child. And it's very psychologically detrimental to the advancement and growth of a child's mind, because it also it destroyed any self-confidence that I had. It destroyed any positive self-image that I would have, and that correlated off into my school life. I had a target on my back for bullies because I'm this introverted kid now who wants to be extroverted. I want to play with other kids, and I want to laugh and smile, but I'm in such trauma on the inside that I just did this dichotomy of emotion that's happening in my life. I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm not bathing. I'm not taking care of myself hygienically, because I also feel in my mind like, if I'm a stinky little boy, maybe these guys won't want to do this to me. And instead, that just made me a target in school for bullies to want to come in and beat me up, and it was bad, right? Like, I mean, I was spit on, kicked, and punched, and thrown into locker, and that was my whole school life. So, I mean, I had nowhere to go, right? Like, at home, I'm being abused on the side. At school, I'm being horribly abused and beat up. And so I became this reclusive child that would just hide in the closet and listen to music, or go play in the woods with my imaginary friends and imagine a life on the ocean. Right?
Wow. And this is just, I find it very difficult to imagine all of this, because, I was blessed to have, I would say, a normal childhood. My parents got divorced when I was young, and I actually don't remember my childhood. But when I have young children and I think about things like this, it makes me sick to my stomach. And, it scares me so much that there's so much of this going out there that is not getting addressed. And also sometimes, parents, I think, have to understand that this could happen to your child. It's far too often you're hearing it. Well, everybody thought that this paedophile was, he would never do anything like that, or, they don't think these type of people, exist close to them. But the reality is they're everywhere. And,
they're everywhere.
If they have an opportunity, then they will pounce on it. But this took you, down a very dark road. This kind of was the start of your kind of downward spiral into, get in trouble with the law. But then, when you get to 15, you'd been into trouble several times, right? But when you get to 15, then you get put into an adult court, where, because you'd had so many chances. Is that right?
Yeah, they just got sick of me. Well, so when I was 13, it's kind of where things started to really go south for me. I started smoking weed. I started drinking. I started having sex with women. You know what I mean? Like, I had to grow up at a very young age, and I matured much quicker. By the time, I'm 13, I already know what full-on sex is, right? I'm very well versed in sexual activity. And so I started to engage in this type of behavior and constantly getting in trouble. Now I'm getting in trouble because it's not even a protection at this point, because I'm no longer being molested by grown men at the age of 13. I mean, I was 6'4", and I was a young adult, but I was so ingratiated into this system of getting into trouble. And this is just the way that I lashed out. This is just the way that I dealt with my own internal emotion, was to get into trouble, because at least here's where I'm getting attention. The spotlight is on me. And that goes back to my inherent nature of wanting to perform and being this extroverted, outgoing kid. My vision is so askewed, or my mentality is so blurred from the life that I've been living. Now, the attention period doesn't matter where it comes from. As long as I'm getting the attention, I feel validated. I feel seen. I feel noticed. Again, in school, I was just the kid everybody picked on and beat up, and my home life was crap. And so here, at least I have validation. Here I'm seen. Here I'm known, even if it's for the wrong thing. And so, yeah, when I was 15 years old, I got caught smoking weed in school, and the principal made me do this drug class every day at lunch, because we had off-campus lunch, and instead of going to lunch, me and the guys I got caught with, we all had to go to the principal's office for this drug class. And so one day I'm there early and nobody's there, and I see a safe, and the safe is cracked open, and so I reached in and I grabbed an envelope and I took off, and that envelope had a couple $1,000s in it, and of course I got caught the next day. And this was the point where the judge was like, "I'm done with you, right? Like I've tried your whole life, and I don't know what else to do with you, so I'm binding you over to adult court." And for me, I was, well, okay, well, I don't know what that consists of either. It doesn't bother me. So we go over to adult court, and this judge was, I'm not even going to play with it, and gave me 6 months in the county jail. And I'd never been locked up before. It's my first time ever getting locked up. And so I go sit in the county jail, and I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. It's 6 months. My mother comes down and visits me and informs me that she is leaving state with her boyfriend. They're off. And so I'm on my own here. And while I'm there over that course of the 6 months, I started getting more charges. They started coming in. They were like, well, you got a bunch of felonies coming in now. You broke into some houses, you stole some stuff, and all of these charges are now coming at me. And now I'm in adult court. There is no juvenile system anymore. And so I go back in, and the judge is like, yeah, you're just a bad dude, and I'm going to make an example out of you, and sent me to prison, full on prison, gave me 2 to 5 years. And I didn't even know what to think. I'm like, I mean, my life is so screwed up at that point that I don't even know what to think. I'm like, well, it's just another adventure for me at the end of the day, because, I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. I don't have any purpose in life. I don't have any direction. I don't have anything. So I guess we're just going to go see what this does. And so yeah, and sent me to full on prison. I went to a level 4 prison in February of 1998.
Wow. Now, Sonny, see what, but when all this was happening, was there nobody, questioning or asking about, where your mental health was at this time? Because the abuse had been brought to light. Was there no help? Was there no support trying to help you nurture this trauma, or what was going on with, because you're still developing, your brain hadn't even, anywhere come close to fully developed. So they must have known that there was, some deep-rooted trauma, stuff that had to be healed, and there's no support up until this point to help you.
You would think, right? And so I know that when as a child, when I first told on my Uncle Mike, I went to mental health. Like, we had to go see these mental health specialists, and I guess mental health has obviously evolved a whole lot since then. We're talking, this is 1988. And all they ever did was play with the dolls. Show me what your uncle did to you with these dolls. And to me, I think that's just really traumatic. Like, you're making the child relive the trauma. And I didn't like it. And so my mother didn't make me go anymore. And as I got older, I refused to talk to anybody. I refused to deal with any mental health people, or I'm just not going to deal with it. Right. I was that kid. I shut down, and I'm not talking to anybody. And so they tried, a bunch of medications and stuff like that. But, the counseling was non-existent, no psychologist, no psychiatrist, none of that. And it all went away. So, and it points out a fundamental flaw in the justice system. It points out a fundamental flaw in parenting. And like, I have 3 kids of my own. If my kid were to get molested one time, there's no way in hell it's ever going to happen again. Like my whole life now becomes about protecting this child. Right? I am going to ensure that I know this kid's whereabouts all day, every day, no matter where we're at. I know where this kid's at. And I think this is a very important lesson for parents to see. If you have a child that is getting into trouble and breaking the law, there's something going on. No child possesses criminal capacity, right? They're not inherently criminal. So something is happening that's traumatizing this child, and this is the way that this child is lashing out. And the patience has to be such a big part of the approach to helping this child, because the kid's not going to naturally come out. If the kid felt safe enough to talk about what was happening in their life or their emotion, they wouldn't be in the position they're in. And so they're not bad kids. Something's happening, and you have to have the patience and the kindness and the empathy and the compassion to allow this kid to feel safe enough to talk about what's going on. And that's how you work that out at these kids.
So that's what I was going to ask you next. It's like, how can parents, do this? How can parents approach this? Or, is it just a case of being present with them, showing that you're there to support, that, that you're there for anything, no matter what it is? Is there any kind of guidance that you could give to parents who, might worry about this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, there's a twofold response to that. If your kids are young, start now, right? You start, always allow your child to be able to talk about whatever they're feeling and validate those emotions, right? You can't discount whatever they're saying. And, a lot of times, I get it, there's a lot of stress in life. Parents are worried about bills and they're worried about jobs. But this is what can be really detrimental to kids, is when you are so unhappy in your life and unhappy with your job or whatever, that you come home and your kid's trying to tell you something, but you just don't want to hear it because you're stressed out from work all day. And you're just like, you know what, go away, deal with it. That can be very traumatic for a child. The child inherently, when you come home and you're angry, that child thinks it's their fault, no matter what. Yep. Even if you tell the kid, it's something at work, I'm just upset with that, that kid's going to think it's something that they did. Mom came home, dad came home, and I wasn't able to make them happy or make them smile. That's now my fault. And so start young, always communicate with your child and create that space that they feel safe and comfortable enough to talk to you about anything. And when they do, one of the biggest problems when it comes to children that are being molested is parents don't believe them. Yeah. Right. And they created it, or you imagined this in your mind. And no kid has the evil capacity to just create something like this. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm not saying no child can imagine that they were touched or molested in the side, but you can look at the totality of circumstances and come to a decision whether or not something is wrong. You have been a neglectful parent, and I'm not saying it to make anybody feel bad or make anybody to say, oh, well, I suck. Nobody has a guidebook. Nobody was given a rule book that this is how you parent, right? We learn our parenting skills from our parents or from our friends' parents when we see we're all experiential in our creation. So we watch and we try to apply what we think is the best method. And so we have to be kind and compassionate to ourselves as well. Nobody's going to nail it 100% every time. I mean, there's some really good parents out there, but you got to be kind to yourself and compassionate and forgiving to yourself. And so if you're in a situation where you don't have that type of relationship with your child, start right now. Sit the child down and say, listen, I love you. You mean so much to me. And I want you to know that you are free to express yourself and talk about anything in your life. This is a judgment-free space. And I just love you. And I want to know what's going on in your life. And if you're unhappy in any way and how I can help. And my middle son, this is one of the most profound moments I had with my middle son's mother. He's a great kid, just graduated the Marines. He's a Marine now. He's on his way to a great life. And he's a typical kid. He's a stubborn, hard-headed, lazy teenager. And he had gotten into some kind of trouble at some point. I don't remember what it was. And his mother said to me, his happiness is not my responsibility. His safety is. our relationship has never been the same since, because I fundamentally disagree with that. His happiness is your responsibility. Right? Happiness is such an important thing to have in life, right? If we don't teach our kids how to be happy, they're going to grow into adults that don't appreciate happiness. And happiness is a goal in life. Happiness should be a paramount goal in all of our lives, because we're here to enjoy this experience of life. And if we're not happy, then we're not experiencing it the way we should be. And so when we raise a child and we cultivate this mentality of happiness is not my responsibility, safety is. So I'm going to be really strict in these rules, the kid will inherently shut down. The kid's not going to feel comfortable expressing themselves or talking to them, because this is what my parent wants. My parent wants me to be this way, and the kid's always going to try to please their parents. And so it's just about sitting down and paying attention and creating that comfortable, safe space that your child can communicate with you.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to awareness as well, making sure that you're aware of your actions, and because you're right, there's no such thing as perfect parenting, but everyone's trying to do their best, but when it comes to what you said there, that they take it personally, children take it personally, anything that's happening, because they go through that individualization process. So this is where they actually take on their belief system, as these beliefs that they inherit before the age of, I think it's around about 7 years old, and they live through these beliefs. So if you're not giving them the love, the attention, even there's nobody's going to be perfect at it, but if you're aware of what you're doing and the reasons why you're doing it, and like, I've not been the best father. I struggled with addiction up until 5 years ago, and my daughter's now coming up 10. For the first 5 years of her life, I might have been present as in a physical being, but I wasn't present with her, and she has she's a very sensitive, girl, and she's amazing. But I just look at now, how she is, and I know that a lot of that is because I wasn't the dad that I should have been. I made a lot of mistakes, but now I make a choice every morning, and I love what you talk about, choice. We'll go on to that in a little bit, but every morning I make a choice. I sit down and I make a choice. I choose to be the best father I can, and I also choose to be the best husband I can, along with a bunch of other choices. But when I say that in the morning, so see when, I might be busy, but see if they ask me for something and I can actually do it, whether it's play with Lego or go and draw or make something, I make sure that I put down whatever I'm doing and go and do it. I never used to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's my choice. And, I've noticed such a difference in just being aware of what my children are actually looking for, because they don't care about money. They care about maybe getting a PlayStation or whatever, but they care about you and your time and how you're with them. You're their superhero. And I think far too many people, fail to see that. They might be working too hard, and it's not anyone's fault. People have got jobs and bills to pay. But I think it's sometimes you need to, maybe take a step back and say, am I fulfilling the needs of my child emotionally, mentally?
And a very important part of that as well is forgiving yourself, right? Like a lot of parents will get into a position like where you were. In the first 5 years, I wasn't very present. I wasn't there. I was physically here, but I wasn't there. And so they then stay in that space because they're like, well, I screwed up and I failed and the relationship's gone and I don't know how to fix it. When the answer is as simple as what you did. Wake up every morning. I can't change what's already happened. All I can do is focus on right now. I can focus on today and being the best father I can be today. And you'll see the application of that mindset will change that child very quickly. And it doesn't take long. Kids are so adaptable, right? And you just start to put that effort in every day. And you know what? Forget the past. I can't change that. I was a bad dad. I forgive myself because everybody makes mistakes. And you focus on every day being present, being there for your child. and you'll repair that relationship so fast, and you put that child in a position to where they feel important, they feel validated, they feel seen, they feel loved. And that's our responsibility as parents.
Oh, I agree with you. And I love that because that's how you start your book. We can't change the things that we've said or done, nor can we undo and change what we've done, because we are the words that we've spoken, the actions that we've taken. But you talk a lot about forgiveness, and
100%.
as soon as I read that, I was, because, I have forgiven myself, but it took me the longest time to forgive myself. It
Sure.
really did. And, and reading your story, there was so many things that, even though the situations were different, you were in a very horrific, difficult place, but the thoughts were the same. When you spoke about, wearing a mask, because, the prison, you'd wore a mask all your life. And that was me. You were in an environment where you had to wear a mask. And,
Yeah.
I think you were talking about concealing your true self. So, but I won't I'll let you go into that, because this is when, I was really shocked when you go in to do 6 months, but then next thing you know, you're facing years. And, if you don't mind, if you can take it from there and, let people know how this unfolded and, where it took you, because it took you to some really dark places.
Yeah. It was, and so it that 6 months could have been just that. Had I had proper direction and proper guidance, or somebody that was there and somebody that took notice and said, you know what, this kid's on a bad path and we need to intervene and fix this, it could have been avoided. But no, when I was sent to quarantine at 16 years old, it was again, I was a target. In prison is just a micro version of the world, right? It's you still have commerce, everything is the same. It's just very restricted and small, and it's where everybody's a gangster, right? Everybody, you're either a predator or you're a prey, right? And so going in there, I was 16 years old. I'm 175 pounds with long hair from the country. I've never seen a gang in my life. I've never, except for, what you see in the 90s rap and what you see from there. But that's just dramatized Hollywood, right? And so being in that environment was very shocking for me. It was very traumatic, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I was raped the first week I was there. They had chow lines that were going. You have 2-man cells, and they're running chow lines, and during chow, the door opens up automatically, and it stays open for maybe 10 seconds, and then it closes, and every 5 minutes it opens back up again for another 10 seconds and during chow line. And my bunkie had jumped down, took off out the door, and I bent down to tie my shoe, and I look up, and here comes 2 dudes running into the cell, and one of them, they punched me in the face, and I mean, it was very quick and very shock and awe, if you will. Knife to my throat, boom, you scream, you say anything, or you're dead. And they, for 15 minutes, they violently raped me, and it was traumatic, right? And then they left just as quick as they came. They darted out the door, and I remember laying there on my bunk thinking, I'm gonna be a victim my whole life, right? Like, if I don't do something, I'm just gonna stay a victim. I'm gonna be here for a long time now. I'm here for 2 years at least. I can't live like this. I don't care any longer what happens to me physically. I in that moment something snapped, and I lost all fear. I'm just never going to be a victim again. And so I grabbed up some pencils that were on the desk, those little pencils, and I tied a string around them real quick, and the door opened up, and I saw one of the guys over there, and I just walked across the hall very calmly, like, "Hey man, I just want you to know I'm not going to say anything about what happened." And he's like, "Man, what you talking about, bro?" Like, and the look was just like I'm like, you don't know what you just did. right? And it just sent me into this fury, and I started stabbing him in the face. And in that moment, something crazy transpired, right? Like I felt powerful. I felt like, okay, I just took my power back. And I ran back across the hall because there's blood everywhere. I mean, I'm not doing really much damage to the guy. It's the pencils are this big and they're pencils, so they're not doing much damage. I'm sure the first hit probably broke most of the lead, and so the rest of it's just like scratches and scrapes, but it's tearing it open and there's blood everywhere. And he's screaming like a little girl. And I run back across the hall and I ungauge the pencils and I start washing my hands off and boom, 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 put it back. And then here come the COs, the corrections officers are running down the hallway because he's screaming. And I'm thinking, I'm screwed, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm screwed. And they took him, they carted him off. And then I heard the other guy yelling, CO, 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 help, help, help. He's going to get me too. You got to get me out of here. And I'm thinking, you guys are so brave to come in here with a knife in my throat, but now you're scared to death, right? Like, what is that? And they grabbed him up, they carted him off, and then everything just became eerily quiet in the unit. My bunkie comes back from chow and he's like, what was that all about? None of your business, man. He's like, yeah, you're right. None of my... And so what happened here was nobody knew what these two had just done to me. They just saw this crazy white kid come running out of the cell and stabbing this guy in the face, right? And the entire atmosphere was different from that moment forward. When I walked out, now it's eye contact, it's respect. People are, and it's palpable. I can feel that the energy is different. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is my defense mechanism to survive through this. If they think that I'm this violent guy that will stab you, they're going to leave me alone, and this will never happen again. And so that became the course of my life. When I transferred into a new facility, one of the guys that was riding in the bus with me was like, "Man, I saw what you did. Put in work, man. That's some solid shit." Boom, boom, boom. And to myself, I'm like, okay, I now have to put on this mask of this gangster to survive, because I'm not inherently, I'm this soft, kind, compassionate kid, right? I'm not a gangster. I'm not violent. I don't want to hurt people. That's not me. But I'm also not going to be a victim anymore. And so when we get to this new facility, the guy that I rode in with, he's my bunkie, and he's got this big ornate gang tattoo on his chest, and he's telling me about the gang, and I'm fascinated by it. I've never heard of gangs before. I've never seen it, and I'm just fascinated by it. And he's like, we can definitely use you, and we'll put you down. And went and talked to the other guys. He's like, yeah, we're going to go out to the yard. I'm going to introduce you to the head of the gang, and we want to put you down. And I'm okay. This is what I'm going to have to do to survive. I got this. Let's go. So we go out to the yard, and the first thing they're doing is like, you got to put in work. And so that's an opposing gang over there. Here's a knife, an actual knife. This time it's nasty. And you got to go over there and stab one of those guys. And without a split second hesitation, I went over and hit the guy a few times, came back, gave him the knife, and they were like, wow, this guy's down. In that moment, I lost all sense of compassion. I lost all sense of empathy. I just didn't care anymore. This is the way I'm going to survive. And then it got to a point where now I want that power. Now I want that respect on the yard. Like I started getting tattoos. I cut my hair. I started to look like a gangster, and I'm stabbing people all the time. Right? I become known as that guy. If you do anything sideways to me, I'm going to stab you. And if you disrespect me, I'm going to stab you. If you look sideways at me, I'm going to stab you. And that became my defense mechanism. And then that just putting on those masks like that just became who I was. And then they sent me to this youth facility, a private owned youth facility in Baldwin, Michigan. And it was a freaking war zone, right? So 2 years I spent in that facility learning about gang life and gang activity. And then you put me into this facility, and it's all 13 to 20-year-old kids. And most of us have already done a couple years in time and a couple years in the joint. And so we're seasoned at this. And it was just so bad because the staff had no idea what they were doing. You know, they're bringing in people that worked at Subway and Pizza Hut and McDonald's and putting a corrections officer's uniform on them, and they don't know how to handle us. We're manipulative. We're violent. We know what we're doing, and it wasn't long before. I mean, there's sex being happening. There, you know, these women are prostituting. There's drugs being smuggled in. Weapons are being smuggled in. Like, we know I can pay you what you're going to make in a year in one fell swoop. Go meet this person. They're going to give you 50 grand. Then they're going to give you a package this big. Bring it in and you're good. And then once they do that, then you got your claws in them. You're stuck. Because if you don't, then you're going to get in trouble and you're going to go to prison. You'll be in here with us. And it's just, it became such a bad thing. And then the COs, they took out their anger on us because there was an assault on one of the officers and they didn't know what to do. So they locked the facility down and they brought in these trained COs from Virginia and from the Department of Corrections, these CERT teams, and they took revenge on us, right? Like they started to take us to the hole and they would chain us up to the showers and just beat the hell out of us and throw us out into the dog kennels in the middle of winter and nothing but your boxers and you're hog tied, right? You're chained behind your back and your ankles are chained together and they throw you down in the cages and they would leave you out there for hours. They would come out and dump water on you, right? Hot water. And it's like, you feel like you're dying, right? And then they would come out and you're just sitting there trying to like meditate and focus, like, and he would come out like, I lost this tooth because a CO come out and kicked me in the face really hard to make sure I was alive. And I'm like, it's just torture, right? It's absolute torture. And then when I turned 20, they kick you out of there. They're like, all right, you're done at this facility. And they send me back to the Department of Corrections where I finished off my year. I had 1 year to go. And then they just open the door. They come in, they're like, well, here's 3 condoms. Here's $75. Your time is up. Good luck.
So
that's it.
Nothing,
like,
no preparation for anything.
It's there, but you have to use it. You have to go seek it, right? And for someone like me that was put into that environment, I was raised by these wolves. Like, I didn't pay attention to programming. I didn't pay attention to anger management classes. I didn't pay attention. I was too busy trying to survive and then trying to proliferate my position, right? And so I got so lost into that in that life, I didn't even pay attention to any of the programming that was available, right? And they didn't take a hands-on approach to saying, okay, again, this kid is out of control. Something is clearly wrong here. They didn't take that approach, right? And so at 21 years old, you just opened the door and let me go. What did you think was going to happen? Right?
Yeah,
I was such a horrible human being and in such a bad state of mind. I forgot about being a victim. I was just full on a perpetrator at this point. Right? I got lost in that life, right? And then you open the doors and a new wave of survival tactic has to kick in, right? Because now it's the middle of winter. I don't know anything about paying a bill. I don't know how to get a house. I don't know how to get rent. I don't know how insurance works. I don't know how to get a bank account. I don't know how to get a driver's. I don't know how to do anything. And so I got into robbing people because that's the only way I really thought that I could make any money. This is something that I'm good at. I know how to do this. I got into robbing people, breaking into houses, armed robbery. And then I got into robbing drug dealers. I'm like, well, you can't call the cops. What are you going to call the cops and say I stole your drugs? And it's just bad. And for 20 months, I ran around the country. I got 2 women pregnant, broke into so many houses. I did so much bad stuff. And then I get caught in 2004 again and sent right back to prison for another 12 years. And,
wow.
And here goes the cycle. It's going to get repeated. And now here's my life, 12 more years. And at this point, I don't even care. Right? I'm like, whatever. It's part of the cost of being a gangster, I suppose. Right?
So, yeah, see when, obviously you've taken on this new identity, you've just said, that's it. Was there parts of you that at any point that was feeling remorse, that was feeling guilty for the things that you'd done, or you just totally shut that part out? Was there any part of you that was just trying to creep out and say, listen, this is not right?
Yeah, there are flashes of it, and then the trauma from earlier in your life, when it's like, you know what, I feel bad, I shouldn't do this, this is wrong. The last time you felt that, you lost your entire family. Everything broke apart. You became a victim again. You got victimized. Wipe that weak shit out of your mind, because you haven't been a victim since you stabbed that dude in the face. You have not been a victim since then. And so it's almost like you have this angel and the demon that's on your shoulder, right? And the angel, you just shut him out. Like, last time I tried your approach, I was raped, I was stabbed, I was abused, I was a victim, right? And so you push the angel out, and the demon is who you are. And it's that it's there, but you block it, right? Like, you just put up this defense, like, I have to survive, and you lose it, right?
Yeah, because at this point you never had any support. You never had, when you go back into prison the second time, you're basically on your own at this point. You've got the two women pregnant, but this is when things, take a turn for you. You go in, and one woman leaves you. You've got this other woman. Let's talk us through that. What happened here, because this is one of the parts where I couldn't believe. I was so,
So this is kind of where my brother comes back into my life. Growing up, it was just me and my brother and my mother. And I always worshipped my brother, right? Like, I just looked up to him. I idolized him. He was a strong, tough kid. He never got bullied. He was just always the tough kid. And so I always idolized him. And he got taken away when I was like 12. He was put into a juvie facility, and kind of on the same path that I did, except just in juvenile. He never got out of it. He went when he was 12 or 13, and he stayed there till he was 18. He didn't get out until I went to jail. And then he got out. And so after my 5 years, then I got out, and we reconnected. And the dynamic was totally different, right? Like, I still cherish this guy. Like, this is the only human being on the planet that I actually care about and that I love, is because it's my brother, right? And so I looking back on it now, he is just a selfish prick, and I didn't have capacity for that, because I didn't care. You're the one person that I will pour all my kindness and my love into. Other than that, I don't care about anybody else. And so when I go back to prison this time, I had met my oldest son's mother through him. He used to date her sister for years. And when I got out, he was like, "Oh, this is my sister." And I was like, "We don't have a sister," right? Like, so she's not my sister. And her and I hit it off really well, and she got pregnant. And when we went back to prison, he was a co-defendant on a couple of the charges with me. And he was coming up and got a parole, and had gotten out. I helped him get a parole, and he had nowhere to go. He's like, he sent me a letter saying, "Bro, I'm about to get out. I have to go to a homeless shelter. I don't know where to go." And so I called her up and said, "Hey, my brother's getting out. I know you don't like him," because she didn't like him at that point. She blamed him for me going back to jail. And I said, "But he needs a place, right? And I'm going to be here for 12 years. And our son needs a father figure in his life, and his uncle, who better to do it than his uncle, right? His uncle can come in there and help you with the bills and help with that." Just totally naive in my own approach. And he wasn't even out in 2 weeks, and then no answers, no phone calls. The phone calls stopped. I used to call this woman every day and talk to my son, and she would bring my son up to see me once a week, and we had built a pretty good bond. And I used that in my life. I was like, okay, I want to be a better person in my life for this kid. I want to get smarter. I want to educate myself. And instead of wanting to be an authentically good person, I wanted to be a better criminal. I wanted to be a more suave gangster. And so I started reading like the 48 Laws of Power and the Art of War, and these other books that on the surface might look like they're designed to help you be smarter or be more intelligent, but they're just books of manipulation. And so she's bringing them up, see me every week, and I'm calling her every day. So the phone calls just stopped coming. Like I couldn't get through anymore. And for me, I start panicking. Like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on. This is my son. This is my girl. I don't know what's happening. And I'm freaking out. And then the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. And I'm just like, what happened? Like, I don't have any information. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if everybody died in a car accident. I don't know what's going on, right? I have nobody else to call for information. And so I was getting close to Christmas time, and the phone answered. Boom, she answered the phone. I called every day. Every day. I didn't miss a beat. And after a couple of months, boom, the phone answered. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? It takes a 30 to 45 seconds for the call to actually connect. And then she come on, and I'm like, hello? What? Are you alive? What's going on? And very somber, like, I'm sorry, but I just have something I have to tell you. I'm like, what? Well, you can tell me anything. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'm pregnant. Well, okay, that's not a reason to not answer the phone for 2 months, right? Like, we can get past that, right? Like, I don't expect you to be a nun while I'm locked up for 12 years, right? Like, I didn't expect that in the first place. So, it's fine. You're pregnant, whatever, we'll deal with it. It's no big deal. Well, that's not the worst part. It's your brother's kid. Wait, what? What? Oh, you slept with my brother? How did that happen? Like, that's your brother. Like, what? Why? Well, hold on. Okay, let me get my bearings together. You know what? It's not a big deal. You're pregnant with his kid. You know what? It's fine. You know what? We'll get through it. Caden will have a brother. We'll raise it as mine. Blah blah blah. Well, no, because he and I are going to be together, and he's going to raise your son as his, and we don't think you should call anymore. And hung up the phone.
Boom.
And I'm like, right? Like, I lost in that moment. I lost all sense of any type of caring or any type of. I was like, what's the point, right? Once again, I tried to be a good person. I tried to care. I tried to be loving. I tried to be kind, and I just became a victim again. Right? I just lost everything. I don't care about anything. I'm going to go full on gangster. I don't care. And so it was a rough couple of months. And then in beginning of February, this new kid rides into the facility and he wants to make a name for himself, apparently. And while I was off working in the kitchen, I come back and find out that everything in my cell is gone. All my stuff has been stolen. And you got to have balls to do this, right? Either that or you're just ignorant, because I'm very well known throughout the prison system at this point, right? Like, I have been in my gang for years. I'm very well known. It took all of 30 seconds for me to get back before 10 people came up and was like, it's that guy. It's that guy. It was that guy. I knew who it was 30 seconds after I got back. And I took all of my anger out on this kid. The doors opened up for chow and a couple hours later, and I very violently attacked this kid and did not stop until the police gassed me and hogtied me and took me to the hole. And they cart me into the hole, and I'm covered in blood and pepper spray. And I'm sitting in solitary confinement. They take the handcuffs off, and I'm leaning over this sink, and I'm so angry I can't even think. And I'm just trying to wash the pepper spray and the blood out of my eyeballs. And I hear this voice. Hey, white boy, come talk to me. And I snapped, man. I called this dude every name under the sun. I'm like, are you kidding me, bro? Boo, you don't know who you're talking to, man. And I mean, expletive after expletive after expletive. And he's like, Well, damn, man. Just, when you ain't so angry, come back and talk to me. I'm saying, man, I'm not talking to you, bro. Don't call me no more. And sure as hell, 10 minutes later, hey, white boy, come on, man. Come on, man. I'm like, bro, you don't get it. Shut the hell up, bro. I don't want to talk to you, man. I will kill you, bro. You do not know who you're talking to, man. Right. And every couple hours, he kept calling over there. And I'm just getting irritated with this guy. I'm like, dude, I swear to God, man, if you don't shut up. and then every day for 5 or 6 days, this guy's calling over every day. Hey, white boy. Hey, white boy, come on, man. We're lonely, bro. We all we got up here. We just lonely, man. Just come. What's it going to hurt you to talk to me, man? And I just don't. Ooh. And so about a week later, they come up. They pull me out of the cell, the COs, and they take me down to get heard on this ticket because I got an assault charge. And I go down, and they're like, this guy's in a coma. If he dies, you are going to do the rest of your life in prison. And as it sits, you're going to be here for at least 5 years. And so you're going to go get 60 months minimum, and we'll talk to you then. And that just hit me so hard. I'm like, God damn, no, I'm sitting in the hole for 5 years. If he dies, I'm screwed. I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. And I was in such a down state. They take me back to the cell, and I'm sitting, not even 30 seconds later, hey, white boy, what happened? I'm like, somebody freaking this dude. So I go up to the cell. I'm like, what, man? What do you want to talk about, man? He says, why are you so angry? What kind of question is that? That's what you wanted to... What are you, a psychologist? Because I'm in prison, my life sucks, I'm in the hole, you won't shut up. There's so many reasons why I'm angry. He says, no. That's why you're mad. And mad is a surface emotion. Anger is so much deeper, and it cuts into your soul, and you are an angry young man. And I'm like, man, shut up. I don't want to talk to you, man. I went and walked, and then I started pacing, and I'm working out, and the question is nonstop. Why am I so angry? Because I am. I mean, I'm blood boiling angry. I sit down, I just get so mad that I can't even think straight. And I'm just like, I start working out, and then I've been a victim my whole life. That's why I'm angry. You know what? Let me just talk to this guy. What do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? I'm sitting in this hole for 5 years. I have nothing in my life. Everybody sucks. You know what? Here, dude. This is why I'm so angry. I figured it out. Blah, blah, blah. And that became the moment that my life changed forever. Because this guy he became my mentor. And he was like, you don't have to live that way. And he worked me out, man.
Yeah, bro, this is the part of the book that I love, and I actually took so much from it, because the healing part of it, I've been on my own healing journey, and I'm still on it. I will probably always be on it. But, when I work with clients, I get them to do some type of processes and stuff, and it's similar to what you talk about, but, can we dive into, how he helped you heal your pain, because I think for people out there that this is why I've started this podcast, is to help people heal their pain and reinvent their life. And when I read this, it seems so simple, but I'd never thought of doing it like this. And when you spoke about it, I was like, wow, it was powerful. And I could feel your pain, and I could see it in the writing, kind of change. And yeah, if you could go into that and how he helped you kind of bring it to the surface and then let it go.
Sure. Yeah. He after I started to talk to him, I mean, this guy it was crazy because he's very sarcastic as well. Right. Like, he's like, oh, poor baby. Like, you, man. And he said, you know what? I'm going to send you a book, and I want you to read this book. And he sent me over Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I've always been, I don't even know where I got it or how I got it, but I've always been able to read and write very well. And so I grabbed the book, and it's a very educated book. Like, Viktor Frankl's a very smart man, and he writes in a very educated way. But the first thing that really stuck out to me was the sentence that said, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it has a meaning. And when I read that, I'm like, shit, that my suffering has no meaning. And maybe that's why I'm so goddamn angry all the time, is right. Like I'm stuck in this victimhood of the things that have happened to me in my life. And I suck at it. Right. And as I read through this book, the first thing I see like, oh, it must be a dude that's in prison because, you know, the book cover's got barbed wire and a bird on it. And I'm like, yeah, well, this might be a prison book. So I read through it and Jesus, right? Like you read Viktor Frankl's story and this man was a successful business owner and had a beautiful family and just had a beautiful life. And then just out of nowhere, one day Nazis kicked his door open and took him and his entire family to Auschwitz. And he's in a concentration camp and he watches his family get slaughtered. He watches his friends and people that he knows get experimented on and tortured and tormented and starved to death and burned to death. And the whole time he is trying to inspire people, trying to keep people smiling. And he says things like, when we can no longer control our environment, we have to challenge ourselves to control our mindset, you know, and I'm looking at it like, wow, this guy went through things that make me pale in comparison. And he's such a good dude. And immediately I started feeling like just the biggest piece of trash on the planet. Like I've used what's happened to me in my life as an excuse to be a predator, right? Like, I just felt so bad about it. And when I read the book and I went back to him and I'm like, fantastic. Thanks. I now know that I'm a world-class piece of shit and I don't feel any better. Thanks, man. And he's like, you can change. Anybody can change at any moment. You can change your life. You can do anything that you want to. You're so young. And in my mind, I'm like, but I'm stuck in this 9x10 cell. How the hell am I going to change? I can't change anything about my life. And even if I did change, nobody's going to know it. And he's like, but you're not going to be here forever. Eventually you'll get out of here. And he started sending me more books. And he sent me this book by Mark Sanborn called The Fred Factor, which is just a fantastic book about a mailman. No, well, that one came a little bit later. But he sends me this book, The Likability Factor. And I read this book about how to cultivate a personality of being liked. And going through this book, I was just angry. I'm like, I'm not worthy. I'm not someone worthy of being liked. All these qualities I don't possess. I don't have them. I'm not worthy of being liked. I was like, this book sucks. You've ruined my life. Like, this is why I didn't want to talk to you, because you're thanks, right? Like, I suck at life. Now I don't want to be a gangster anymore. I just want to crawl into a hole and die, right? And the more books he was sending, he sent me a dictionary, right? He's like, here, read a dictionary, up your vocabulary, man. You sound like a savage. I'm like this. And so I just started to continue to read. And the more I read, I'm like, okay, this is what I would like to be like. I just don't know how. How am I supposed to do this? And it starts with letting go, right? It starts with forgiving yourself for realizing, like, we go back to what I said before. Nobody has a book. Nobody has a guidebook on how you do life. And you have to forgive yourself because you can't change anything that's happened. There's nothing you can do about 5 seconds ago or anything beyond that. All you can control is now and what comes. You have the ability to control that. So you can continue to be this person you are, or you can make a choice to be something different. And it doesn't matter what's happened before, because nobody's going to know that unless you tell them. Nobody will know what kind of life you've had. So you get to choose what life you cultivate. And so in theory, it sounds great, right? It's perfect. It's simple. But in practical application, how does that work? Because I hate myself. Right? I hate myself. And if I don't have any self-worth, I'm never going to achieve anything because I don't feel worthy of having it. So, and that's where it starts with, well, you got to forgive yourself. Well, how do you do that? Okay, well, first you have to go through your whole life. You have to reflect on your life, and you have to isolate all the traumatic moments and the happy moments and the sad moments and the bad moments. Well, how do you do that? Write your life in reverse. And this was one of the first exercises, was sit down. Before I was here, right? So before I'm in where I'm at right now, before I was here, I was in the spot. And go back through your entire life and just recall that. And in 10 minutes, you'll be able to recall your entire life. And if you actually put 30 minutes into it, you can go into extreme detail. And so I did. I sat down and I was amazed at how easy this was to recount my whole life. All right. And then once I did that, then it's okay. So go back to each one of those spots and isolate happy moments, sad moments. Think about them in that moment when you were here, when you lived in Stanton, Michigan. What were some of the happy moments? What were some of the sad moments? What were some of the good and the bad? And this is a few week process. This isn't something that just happens overnight. So you're going through this and you're thinking on it, and you're right. And by the time I'm done with that, I mean, I've got pages, my whole life basically is written down with happy moments, tragic moments, sad moments. And I'm like, damn. And so let's go through and isolate these moments and find out what we can do about them. Right. So here's a moment where your uncle molested you, or here's a moment where this guy raped you, or here's a moment where this guy abused you. What can you do about that? Well, nothing. There's nothing I can do about it. Right. So let's go back and look at one of the people you traumatized. You broke into this person's house or you beat this person half to death. What can you do about that? Nothing. We can't do anything about it. Right. So your victimization and your victimizing, you can't do anything about either of them. You can't change them. Right. So if you could, what would you do? Well, I'd want to be forgiven. I'd want forgiveness. Right. And so how do you achieve that? I don't even know half of the people that I victimized. How am I supposed to ask them for forgiveness? Right. Because you can't. And it's not about seeking that out from that person, right? Forgiveness is never about somebody else. It's about yourself. It's for you, right? We've come because of religion and other external forces. We have attached forgiveness as an act for somebody else, and it's not. It's an act for yourself. And so I don't forgive you for the bad things you've done to me so that you have an easier conscience. I forgive you so that I'm free of it, so that I'm free of the victimization. I'm free of the hurt. I'm free of the shame. I'm free of the embarrassment. I forgive you for that. And so I wrote letters to people that I knew that I hurt, and I wrote letters to people that I didn't know that I hurt, just to you. I remember the situation. I remember what happened. I don't know your name. I don't know who you are. And I kept writing these letters. And I found when I first started to do it, I was just, everything in it was blaming, right? Yeah. This had happened to me. 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 And this is why I did this to you. And I would send him over to Mallory, and he would send it back like, bro, you're just making excuses. You're just excusing your behavior. I'm like, you're right. Okay. Go back, rewrite it. I did it because I'm selfish. I did it because I didn't care. I did it because I was so hurt. I didn't know how to displace my emotion, and I didn't know how to deal with this and blah, blah, blah. And so now it became more about remorse. And I poured my heart into these letters. And then I would walk back and forth in my cell, and I would read them out loud, almost to the point where I had most of them memorized. So I'd just look at who I'm writing the letter to, and I could literally just walk back and forth reading it, and I'm pouring my soul into this. And it really took me to a traumatic spot because I became very depressed. I didn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was having nightmares, sweating, cold sweats. And this is where he came in and said, okay, you only get another day to feel sorry for yourself. You have to let this go. Write these things out and then flush them down the toilet. Right? You're gonna flush these things. You're gonna put all your emotion into it, and you're gonna flush it, because God, Allah, Buddha, Odin, whatever you want to call him, the universe will take that remorse and will put it on the hearts of its recipients. Right? And you just have to believe that. Yeah. And so I just poured everything I had into it, and it felt like these layers were just being peeled off. Like, man. And when I flushed them down the toilet, there was this finalization to it where I just felt like, yeah, those people now know that there was a hurt and troubled child that became a violent, mean adult, that my intention was never to I didn't want to ruin your life or cause you pain or hurt. I just didn't know how to deal with my emotion. And I acted out. And unfortunately, you were the recipient of those emotions, that pathway of not knowing how to deal with it. And that really started to help heal. Right? It started to heal. And I would talk to myself constantly. I would speak out loud, and I come to learn that your voice is a healing mechanism, because the more you talk about your trauma, the easier it is to talk about. Right? And that's called healing. So I can tell you that I've been raped. I can tell you I've been stabbed. I'm not ashamed of these things. I was the victim in those situations. And it doesn't hurt to talk about that. It doesn't cause me pain to talk about it, because I've healed it. So the more you talk about it, the more you heal it, until it gets to the point where it's all healed. And now all you're doing is helping other people that hear you to heal as well. They can say, oh man, if he can talk about it, I can talk about it. And the more I talk about it, the more I heal. And you create this butterfly effect of healing. And then the next and last process for me really in this endeavor was to write my obituary. And that was like one of the most profound things that I had ever done. And you write this from the perspective of several people in your life, that this is what they're going to say about you when you die. And I had no idea why he's having me do this. I'm like, well, this is dumb, but whatever, I'll do it. So he sent it over and I wrote a page and a half, maybe, sent it back. And he was like, you died today? It was like, I don't accept this. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you just died today. I was like, well, he said, take it back. Imagine that you live till you're 110 years old. And what would people say about you? You had this long, super life and you died at 110. And so I sat down, and this literally took me a month and a half to do this. And when I was done, it was so deep and in depth from every person that spoke at my obituary. I sent it back over, and he finally accepted it. He said, now you have a blueprint for the rest of your life. This is the life you want to live. Now all you got to do is reverse engineer it and just take the steps to go towards this life. And that's the life you really want. And I look at it and I'm like, that is a life of purpose. And I have taken steps towards that every day. And for the rest of my life, I will always pursue that. And over the course of 19 months is how long I ended up staying in the hole with this guy. I learned so much from him, from these processes, and this mindset shift, even to the point where the COs hated me, right? I was a dick to these COs, right? Like, and it got to the point where very quickly they changed. Their behavior changed to me when I started being kind and being nice. Instead of give me that food or being a dick, it was, thank you, sir. I appreciate you, officer. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It started to shift. Now I'm getting 10 minutes more on the yard, or an extra 5-10 minutes in the shower. Or there's an extra tray on the cart here. Do you want it? An extra dinner tray. You want that? Yeah, please. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you know what I mean? And it just, you see the effects of kindness, and it immediately starts shifting. And that's the process, man. I went kind of long-winded on that one. Sorry about that.
What's that? No, but that's the thing is, and see, you know, what you, when you were talking, you know, about, at one point you were thinking, how do I become this person? And he says to you, find people who you idolize, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that I work, when I work with clients as well. It's look at somebody who has what you want, or, you know, somebody who you admire, their values, how do they live? And, you know, and that's what you've done with The Rock and Denzel. Yeah, you know, and
George Clooney.
George Clooney.
Yeah.
You know,
I looked at these guys, and it's 100%, because you don't, when you're in that position, you may not know like how to be, right? And you'll hear people say things like fake it till you make it, or you can't choose your personality, or you can't be like The Rock. That's The Rock. You got to be an individual. And to that I say bullshit, right? Nobody knows how you want to be. So you find people that embody the characteristics that you want to embody, and then you apply those characteristics in your life. I'm not trying to be The Rock. I just like The Rock's charisma. I like the way he smiles. I like his kindness. I will apply those things in my life. And the same thing with Denzel. I love the way Denzel talks, and I love the perseverance that he embodies and never gives up and never quits, and the intelligence and eloquence with which he delivers himself with and carries himself. I love those qualities. So I will absolutely take those qualities and apply them to my own life. And that's not being fake. That's developing your own personality.
That's reinventing yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're thinking, this is the guy I want to be. And the way I look at it is pretty much the same. I identify the type of man I want to be. You know, what type of man is that? And who's the best example of that to me? And then you just, implement them. And it's a thing I do as well. Not so much now, because of over the years I've done it so much. But I have a list of values, and I read them every morning, and I read my values. This is who I'm going to be today. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be generous. And you go through the values so that when I walk out that door, I already have an idea of, see, if something happens, then, I know how I'm going to respond to that, because this is who I want to be. I want to live like this. Sure. So, and that's what, throughout the whole book, there was so many things that you spoke about, and I was like, wow, it's like, that was me, and it was like when you said about that you weren't this bad person. You were a kind, soft, compassionate boy. I was the exact same. I was involved in gangs and drugs and all that, and I'd done quite bad things. But do you know what? I'd done them because, again, it was a protection. If I didn't do these things, I would have been seen as the weak one. So I had to drink alcohol or take drugs to be that type of person that could do that type of thing, because it wasn't my nature. And this is what now, because I also do talks in schools and stuff, and this is what I want to try and get out is, you don't have to be that person. You don't have to put yourself out there to, pretend to be somebody different. You're unique. You be you. And if these people, don't like it, then find new people. And that's
and you can always, there's 8 billion people on the planet. You'll always find somewhere else to fit in by being authentically you, right? They'll come to you. You don't have to go to them.
No, your vibe attracts your tribe. I can't remember who said that, but it's your vibe attracts your tribe.
Love that.
I love it. And I look at your story, mate, and even after you've got out of prison, you would think that was the hardship over. You've totally reinvented yourself, and and in the book, the moment that you changed it, and I read it, and you said this was the moment that you knew you had changed, was when when you had to do this training course. You'd been selected because of your
full of pedophiles.
And and that was something that you hated.
Something that you said there that was important is your daily values. Right. And that's a very important thing to have. And I'm not one, I don't ever talk about religion, right? I barely ever talk about it. I don't even think that I touched on it much in the book. But I think you should have a spirituality. And myself, I'm Danish. So I found Asatru many, many years ago and fell in love with the religion of the Vikings. And we have what's called the 9 noble virtues. And I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful spot to start from, with discipline and courage and hospitality and self-reliance. And you learn these traits. And when these are honorable traits, right? Like we talk about Vikings kind of went out of existence in the 12th or 13th century, right? Like they had a 400 or 500 year run, and that, but we still look at them at like the most honorable men and women in history. There's a reason for that, because they lived a life of value and virtue, right? They were inherently very honorable people, and so I just wanted to touch on that with what you said. Have those values every day, and no matter, I don't care what your religion is. Have that.
No, I agree with you, because if you look at what you were saying with the virtues and values, the Bushido, I think it's the Japanese, the warriors. These ancient warriors had their own honor code, and it's lived through the test of time. And if you think it's got here to now, it's because it's, you know, it's lasted this long because it's not so much it works, it's honourable, and honour doesn't change through time.
Yeah.
Honour's still the same thing as it was back then as it is today. So by embracing that and taking on, these, values, and I call it my honour code, because I'm honouring myself, and by honouring myself, then I honour my wife, my children, my community, my friends, my family. But I have to make
Yeah.
sure that I myself, I'm responsible for me. And if I then go and do the inner work and, start to live by a set of values that I, respect, then that will then bleed out to the rest of the people that come into contact with me. So I agree
Yeah.
with you. It's probably one of the biggest things that I stress upon, especially when people who come into the world of self-development, they're trying to look at, to better their life. Then it's about starting with yourself and thinking, right, who do I want to be? Because if you figure out who you want to be, and you also spoke about it in the book as well, about it's okay changing, but what are you going to do now? Because
Right.
this change without having a vision for your life, a plan, is pretty pointless, because what are you going to do? You have to have a vision for the future so that you're
Yeah.
working towards something. And
Yeah. You got a goal set.
yeah, and 100%. But but going back, the adversity never stopped from you, because you got out of prison. You still had to go through some difficult things. Probably some of the most hardest things that you've had to go through.
Man, you are not lying. And I thought that, like, okay, the world has done enough. I've been through enough. And especially, again, you had talked on the class that I taught. And so that was my getting out of the hole ticket, was that I had started to write essays and submit them to the prison. And I did well on one, and they came to me and said, "Hey, we've been seeing the changes that you've been doing, and we have this new program that we want to implement in the Department of Corrections, and we want inmates to teach it. If we give you the materials, you study it. If you agree to teach a class, we'll let you out of the hole early." And of course, I jumped on that. I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. So I studied it. And instead of putting me out into general population, they took me to protective custody. And I'm like, this is a sick joke, right? Like, this is a joke, right? You're going to take me. That is the worst place in prison to be, is in protective custody. Right? This is where the worst of the worst are, right? The people that are colossal pieces of trash, but don't have a backbone to stand up and accept the consequences of their actions. And so they put me in that class, and I had 20 students to teach. And out of those 20 students, 17 of them were pedophiles. And that's the moment that I knew that all the work I had just done over the last 19 months solidified. And I knew that I was a changed person. I was able to take my life experiences and teach these pedophiles how to think differently. And this is the result of your actions. This is what you turn your victims into, because I was the victim of your actions. And this is what can happen, except I have been fortunate enough to do some inner work and turn it around. Not everybody gets to do that. Not everybody learns how to do that. And so had I not gone into that, I would be a murderous rampage for the rest of my life. And teaching that class really fundamentally sank it into me that change is possible, that you can absolutely do this. People can change. You just have to want. And so I thought that my life is going to be just peachy king now, because I've learned these wonderful characteristics and these traits. And I spent the rest of my time. There was about a year and a half period after getting done with that was really bad, because I then chose to also leave my gang. Like, I'm not a puppet anymore. I'm nobody's pawn in the game. And that's when I started getting stabbed and beaten, because the gang did not want to let me go. I've got these scars in my dome and these dents from getting hit with locks, and I've got scars all over my fingers from protecting myself, and I've been stabbed, and it's bad. But I persevered through that and stood my ground. And then, spent the rest of my time in group meditations with people and workshops and building with guys. And then I get out and I'm like, okay, life is going to be good. And it's just a whole new level of reality that slaps you in the face, right? Like, now I have to learn how to to get a driver's license. I have to learn how credit cards work, bank accounts, rent, insurance, all this stuff that life throws at you. And again, for all intents and purposes, I'm just thrown to the wolves here. I was married. I had met a girl and I was married to her, and we got out and very quickly realized, like, we want two different things in life. She wants to go to work, come home, sit down, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, rinse and repeat. Like, I have been sitting on my ass for half of my life. I got bigger things to do. So we had a pretty amicable divorce. But I was fortunate enough to land a union job doing demolition. I went in there and I outworked everybody every day. I would show up early, work harder than everybody, stay late, and leave. So I earned my position in that job. And knew that I wanted more. So I started making music and like, okay, and I did really good, right? When you put your mind to something, if you believe in it, you can achieve it. Anything you want to do in life, you can. It's about taking steps towards what you claim that you want. If you really want something, you'll put in that work to make it happen. And so anything that I touched would succeed. I started the music, got signed to a label really quickly, and started touring, and was really successful with this music. And I'm thinking, okay, life is great, but it's kind of, even though when I had a stage, I would use that platform to try to inspire people. I just kind of got lost in that too. Right? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Here it all comes, and it kind of hits you. And I got with this girl who kind of cultivated that mentality in me. And she was like, oh my, I got a big tattooed man that did time in prison, and he's a badass. And I just kind of got lost in this life now. And it's crazy how mindset is it's a daily process, right? Like, you can't quit. If you don't use it, you will lose it. I had went through all of that, and then here I am now stuck in a life that I'm not happy with. I mean, externally, it looks like I'm happy as shit, right? Like, I've got an amazing band, I've got a girl, I've got a kid, like, life is good, but I'm not happy, right? She's not a nice and kind person. She's not a nice individual, and I didn't like it. But I'm also looking at, I have this beautiful, beautiful baby boy, and here's my opportunity to be a father. I had lost my opportunity to be a father when I went to prison, because the other two kids, I'm in prison your whole life. And here's my chance. And I have this beautiful, beautiful child. And I know if I leave this girl, she's going to use this against me. She has another kid, and I know the whole story with her ex and how that whole thing goes. I know the kind of person she's going to be. And I just felt stuck. And so I ran the music game for a while. I cheated on her, never been in a serious relationship in my life, so I didn't really understand the ramifications of it. But when that all transpired, I learned a very valuable lesson about loyalty and fidelity. And even though these are a couple of the virtues that I subscribe to, and so I knew not to make that mistake again. And then COVID hit, and we were all stuck in a house. We're on lockdown. I started a YouTube channel. I started doing really well with music reactions in YouTube. And then just kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm now unhappy in my life. Right? I'm going through, every day's the same routine: make videos, play video games, play with my kid, and go to sleep. Right? Like, we don't live in a happy house. Nobody's happy here. I'm going to leave. I'm out. I'm done. And whoo, hit the crazy switch on this woman, right? Sat her down like an adult. Let's sit down. I'm not happy with this relationship. I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm out. And she went ballistic, right? Candles going through the windows. I just destroy everything. I left. I'm out. I need to go, because this is going to go south really quickly. And I left, and thank gods I had a friend in Florida who called me up and said, dude, I just saw what's going on. Bought you a plane ticket. Get down here and just get some space, man. You're going to need it. And so I did. I just said, okay, I'm out. Let me go. I went down to Florida for a few days with my buddy, and just kind of pushed the reset button and took a stock of my life. Like, what is happening here? I'm meant for so much more. I have so much more purpose. There's so much more to be done here. And I got to stick with this. I know she's going to use this child. I know that that's what she's going to do. So I go back to Ohio. And I tried to start rebuilding. I got a condo, got a car, started rebuilding my life. And then it's just rocks are getting thrown through my window. My car's getting destroyed. My bike's getting destroyed. And I know where it's coming from, even though I can't prove it. Right. And so I'm just, what do I do? Right. Like I need to do so much more in life, but I'm confused. I'm lost. And here I am again in this space and I just don't know what to do. And that I'm back to being the kind-hearted person that I've always been. I've learned how to conquer these demons, but now I'm just being tested constantly, like, and then these old demons have a way of trying to bring themselves back about. Like a grown man tries to accost me somewhere, it's not going to be pretty, right? Like I'm not a weak little kid, right? I'm not some weak little victim, my guy. Even though I'm nice, I'm still 6'6", 240 pounds, and I've been through some stuff, right? I'm not scared of you. Like you're not, and people take advantage of that, right? People will push those buttons, especially my kid's mother. She knows that exists, so she'll try to push those buttons. And out of the blue, I get a message from my booking agent says, I got a podcast from this girl in England. And she wants you to be on her podcast, and I think it'd be a good fit. Okay, yeah, let's do this in the midst of all my other chaos. Let's jump on a podcast, and I jumped on, and it was, and what people don't know that are watching this episode is the madness that you and I went through this morning. Right? The technical madness that you and I went through this morning is kind of similar to the way that this experience went. She sent me a link. I ended up having to send her another link because things weren't working, and she jumped onto my StreamYard, and my life is in chaos. I've got this kid running around. I got a buddy over here. I got 2 cats that are going nuts. My phone is going ballistic, and I'm like, hi. Yeah, no, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to doing the podcast. I would love to. Yeah, it's going to be great. Don't worry that this is, don't take this into consideration. It's madness. And so we set up the podcast for a week later. And then I got on that podcast and it changed everything in my life. This woman, in an hour, I fell in love with this woman, right? Like I showed up professionally. I showed up on time, much like I just did here. Like this one, okay, I'm on time. I'm ready to go. Everything's good. I showed up. She admits to this day, she'll say, I didn't think I'd ever see you again. But I showed up on time, ready to go. Hi, let's have this podcast. And for the first time in my life, I felt like somebody saw who I really was, saw the real me. And I just felt comfortable talking about everything in my life. She's the first person that I admitted to about the rape in prison, that I was raped. She's the first person I just felt so comfortable. And I just talked to her about it. And I didn't feel judged. And I literally fell in love with this woman in an hour. And we are married to this day. Right.
Wow.
Like we talked every day for 3 months, and it was beautiful. And I just felt like I know what I'm meant to do. Like she supported that. She's like, yes, that is your calling. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You know it. You just need to make that choice to do it. And I'm like, you're right. And it's not here. And as hard as it's going to be, I have to walk away from this situation. I have to leave, because staying here is only going to end up in me either getting in trouble or going back to prison or dying. And those are not options. So my choice is to pack up and leave. And it's ironic. I got on my motorcycle, packed up a bunch of my stuff, left it at a friend's house, had a couple of kids that I gave them my condo. They're going to watch my cats and some other stuff. I'm going to get on my motorcycle and I'm going to go out west, and then I will come back and pick my stuff up. And I rode my bike for a day, and I'm down in Cincinnati, and I'm on my motorcycle, and I'm out taking a ride. I'm like, yeah, I'm free. And out of nowhere, the freaking road turns. I didn't see it. I try to pivot and catch it, and I smack the curb at 35 miles an hour with my motorcycle. Flip, boom, boom, boom. And I'm laying on the ground like, why? What? I just can't catch a break. What is going on here, man? And I took it. It's another pivotal moment in my life where I can either say, it's not fair, life sucks, life's trying to take me down, life's trying to destroy me. And I said, no, this is a sign that the world is saying, go get your rest of your stuff and be final with your decision. Stick to your choice. Go get your shit and go west. And it did. I went back. I got my car. I got all my stuff. Screw that bike. I gave the bike away. And with every state that I drove through, I just felt the layers being peeled off. And I'm not running from anything. I'm running to the rest of my life. And that's what I did. And I moved to California, and what a purpose-driven life I live now.
Brother, and it's amazing because you used a quote. I don't know, I think it was in your book, or maybe behind every great man is a great woman, and
Yeah.
that is something I live by, because what you explained there about your wife Claire is exactly my wife Jenna. She is me for who I am. She stuck with me through everything when most people would have left me. And when I'm on this journey of doing it very much similar to you, she supports me, she pushes me. And see, to have that behind you and that love and that support, nothing can come close to it, And she believes that I'm here for a purpose, and I believe it, just as I believe you are, And, before we start talking about what you do, see everything that's happened to you, through everything. Do you believe everything happened for you?
100%. 100%. I've been asked this a lot in my life of what would I do different? If I could go back and change, what would I do different? And nothing. There's nothing. I would go through it all again. I would endure every bit of it. Again, if it put me right where I'm at right now, I'd go through it all again. I'd do it all twice if I had to, because this is everything is designed to put you where you are, right? I wouldn't be able to talk about the things that I've experienced if I hadn't experienced them. I wouldn't be where I am. And so I'm thankful for every experience I've ever had. I'm thankful for the men that have violated me. I'm thankful for all of it, because if you hadn't done that, it was insane. When my uncle died, I don't know, a year ago, my mother called in tears, and I took the call, and my wife's sitting there, and she's, here, your Uncle Mike, he died. Well, I mean, I'm not going to go into mourning, right? But I consoled my mother, right? Like, I understand it's your brother. I get it. I'm sorry for your loss, blah, blah, blah. And then after the call, my wife is like, you amaze me every day. I just don't understand how you talk to your mother. I don't understand how you are compassionate for the man who molested you for years, just died, and you're consoling your mother about it, instead of being like, I don't give a shit that dude's dead. Like, I don't, right? Because that type of mentality doesn't do anybody any good, right? It doesn't do anybody any good. Whether that's the way I feel or not, it doesn't do anybody any good. I forgave that dude so many years ago, right? And it's sad when a woman loses her little brother. The man's dead. I don't care if it's my mother and a victim. I don't care who it is. There's a human being who lost someone in their family, and that's sad, right? And so you deserve to have some consoling, right? I don't want anybody to experience pain. I don't want anybody to be in pain, and I just want you to know that it's okay, and I'm sorry for your loss. And so I think we should all have that kind of approach.
I agree 100%, because at the end of the day, we are all connected, whether people want to believe it or not. The unified field. When you spoke about spirituality, I don't have a following of religion or anything like that. I never really have. But I believe in spirituality. I believe in oneness. I believe that, we are all connected. And if you hurt others, you're hurting yourself. Find that, like you have done, is let go and use everything that has happened to you for your benefit, your purpose, for what you're doing now. So, let's talk about what you're doing now, because you're doing some amazing things in this. Yeah, so let's talk about what you've got going on, because you've released your book, Hey White Boy, which I must say, everybody should read this, because it's a story of redemption, okay, but the lessons it teaches you in that book, you can use in your life, and you can use to heal your life, and also to change it, and also what it done for me was it showed me resilience, but it showed me that people can change, and it gave me a sense of gratitude that I've never felt before, because it was so detailed, and it was
Thanks, man.
it was amazing. But I will have all the links for. I've got all your links here that I will put them in the description. But you've also been doing some other things. You've got what's called the choice effect as well, isn't it? Which is your podcast, which is the choice effect, and then you've got Von Cleveland Foundation.
Yeah.
So let's talk the choice effect.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, and then you can let me know what else you've got going on.
Yeah. So the choice effect, there's actually a couple of things for that. And so I'm big into podcasting. I enjoy the art of conversation. I think that conversation it could heal the world, right? If we could all just sit down and have an authentic conversation, like you could solve so many of the world's problems. And so I've taken since starting YouTube, I've taken an approach to doing several shows. And I wanted to do a podcast. After I left my ex, I got hacked. I had 50,000 subscribers, and things were going really good. And then my channel was hacked, and I lost the channel, and I started again, got back up to 10,000, got hacked again, and it just kind of took the air out of my sails. And I finally learned how to, security my stuff, so I couldn't get hacked for a third time. But I wanted to do a podcast that highlights people that have lived a life that they didn't want and made a choice to live the life that they do want. And my goal was to put on display for people the impact of making a choice, of making that decision of, I don't like my job, so I quit. I don't like my relationship, so I left. I don't like my house, so I moved. I don't like my town, so I left and moved to another state, right? Like, these are choices that you get to make. You don't have to accept your circumstances in anything. Sometimes the decision is hard. I'm not going to say it's not. Sometimes there's kids involved in that relationship, but you staying together for the kids never, ever, ever works out for anybody. Not for the kids, not for the relationship, never for anybody, right? So staying together for the kids is never a good thing, because you're going to have a tumultuous relationship, and those kids are going to grow up blaming themselves for the dissension between mom and dad. Never a good thing. If you don't like your job, quit. Well, but I got to pay my bills. You're going to figure it out, right? You are going to survive. You're not going to starve. You're not. Quit. Go do something you're passionate about. And if you don't, it's a choice. You're choosing not to. It's not that you have to keep your job. You choose to keep your job, right? You can quit. There may be consequences to that, but you have the choice. You don't have to do anything. You can choose to do something different. And here's the crazy part. You can suck and fail at things you don't like to do. So why not suck and fail at something you like to do? Right? And so, and Denzel Washington said that, right? You will fail at things you don't like to do. So fail at something you like to do. Make that choice. And so I wanted to just bring people on that spotlighted those choices that they make in their life, and that how they live a better life now. And then I got to season 1 was finished of that, and I realized that I wasn't really pounding home the points that I wanted to make throughout my life. And so I started season 2, which there's one episode up now, and I was actually going to do the other episode now, but technical difficulties are fun. So that'll be up the next day or two. This season, I wanted to focus on the steps that people can take in those points, and double down on those and expand on these points of topics, so that people can make an informed decision and know that there's a choice to be made. Like, you get to make this choice. Life is what you choose to make it, no matter what, no matter how you look at it. And we can bury it in excuses. And it's not always a popular opinion, right? Like, I'm sure I'll catch a lot of flack at some point from people saying, well, I didn't choose to be a victim. You didn't choose to be a victim, but you chose to stay a victim.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, I didn't choose to get raped, but it's my choice whether or not I allow it to affect me 30 years later or 20 years later or 15 years later. That's my choice. And I'm then choosing to be a victim, right? And people, it's not that easy. Yeah, well, it kind of is. It's just a choice. It's just a choice. And I understand there are a million valid excuses, but at the end of the day, there are still excuses.
Yeah,
Just take the word valid off. It's just an excuse. You can make a choice. And so that's the whole point of the choice effect. And I have my mindset coaching company with me and my wife. It's called Itopia Coaching. And my primary teaching curriculum is called the Choice Effect as well. And it's a 12-week, 8-module personal development program that goes through and shows you how to identify where you're unhappy in your life and how to isolate those, how to set goals, how to abolish self-sabotaging behaviors, and how to develop self-empowering habits, and how to take control of your life. And it's all by the power of choice.
Love it, bro, because I choice. I'm actually doing a talk on this Wednesday coming, and to a local charity, and that's what my topic is: choice. It's because everything is a choice. Like you said, yeah, they might have excuses and they might be valid, but now what? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to allow them to take you for the rest of your life? Are you going to do something and make something of yourself? And the coaching that is something I don't understand. In the UK, people don't focus enough on looking at trying to develop themselves, and it's unbelievable where. In America, I think people spend a lot more time and energy and money into investing into themselves. Where here, it's not as popular, which it baffles me.
Well,
but you've got
and it also comes from your corporate, the business and the government as well. Because if you need to take some time off for mental health, they'll can you from your job, right over there.
Yep.
They will. You're not stable, and you can no longer have your job. Right, so it's a little different over in Europe for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's something that I'm looking to try and speak more about. And this is the whole thing,
blazer, man. Yeah,
I've been on this journey, and I've witnessed it. And like you, I will never work for anyone again because of how things have transpired in my life. And this is as I said to you before we started, I've committed to this. I've let everything else go that's not aligned with what I'm trying to do, and that is it 100%. And and it's much like what you're doing. You've got the Von Cleveland Foundation, which is a non-profit. Is that right? And you're with that, you're helping ex-cons come out, try to get ahead and a start in life.
It's not just ex-cons though. Yeah. It's literally geared for anybody. But I target marginalized individuals because these are the people that need it the most, and these are the ones that can't afford it. Yeah. And so the Von Cleveland Foundation, there's a 3-phase approach to this. The first phase is the Literary Legacy Project, which is we provide books. We find the John C. Maxwell Leadership Series, the Chicken Soup for the Souls, the Mark Sanborns of the world, even the David Goggins, all these self-help. There's so many self-help books, motivational books, positive books. This bookshelf of mine back here is a treasure trove. This is life-changing stuff here.
Yeah.
Right. And those books are $25 a pop. Most people can't afford these because we live in some hard times. Raise money to purchase these books and give them away. Take them to homeless shelters, rehab facilities, juvenile facilities, jails, prisons, anybody whose core clientele are people that are trying to better their lives, because this is the stuff that can do it. You take examples of other people that have walked that path in life and how they've fixed themselves, or how whatever pathway they took to get better, and realize that this is real tangible tools right here, including my curriculum and other curriculums and teaching things and other mindset coaching and material. So the Literary Legacy Project is designed to put these packages together and donate them to the places that need them. And the second phase of that is the speaking symposiums, where we'll rent out a venue, and half of my board of directors are ex-convicts. Half of them did time. We have over 35 years of time together, and over 50 felonies between all of us.
Wow.
And we're all business owners, entrepreneurs, philanthropists. And the whole point of the speaking symposium is to ignite minds. It's to show people. We're not just telling you, we're showing you. We are the people that have been there. We are the ex-convicts of the world. We are the ones that are now successful because we've made a choice to live a better life. And anybody can do it. It's available to literally anybody. You don't have to be an ex-convict. You could be a drug addict. You could be an alcoholic. You could just be somebody who's unhappy with life. Be a homeless guy. You can be anybody. Anybody can change at any moment and live the life that you want to live. And we are living proof of that. So that's the second phase. And then the third phase is our big hairy ass goal going down the road, which is the Von Cleveland Empowerment Center, which is basically, it's going to be a brain gym. It'll be I understand how important it is to be in an environment that's conducive to learning and how much more impactful that can be, which is why you see AA meetings and NA meetings and group sessions and workshops, and because being in that group environment is much more conducive to learning, and the learning will sink in much more. So we want to build a center that has a Zen room in it where people can do workshops and group discussions and study halls, and then resource rooms where there's computers where people can build resumes and do online research, and then a mindset library where if you're not in an organization that receives the books from us, there's a library here that you can come use it. And all these books are here and they're available to be used. And then we'll have like mock interview rooms where we'll work with you. We'll partner with another organization to put you in a suit, and you can come in and give a PowerPoint presentation like you were in a boardroom. Practice is the best way to do it, right? I didn't just become a speaker out of nowhere. I paced back and forth in that cell for 19 months, giving speeches to imaginary crowds. And I taught myself that skill. And so we also want to create a space where people can come in and you can hone in a skill. You can practice. If you want to learn how to podcast, we'll have a podcasting room. And you can sit down and you can learn how to be a podcast host. You can learn how this stuff works. If you want to be an actor, we'll help you learn how to be an actor. Pursue whatever you want in life and be happy, because happiness and purpose is what we all should be shooting for. And so that's the third phase, and that's the overall arching goals of the Von Cleveland Foundation. And ideally, I want this thing to be set up all over the world, right? I would love to have are you in Scotland or Ireland?
Scotland, brother.
I can't really tell. I got a buddy, Chris Cook, that lives over there in Scotland, and I would love to, have a Scotland chapter of the Von Cleveland Foundation, right? Because there's people over there that need books. There's people over there that can learn from people that have been through the ringer, and the speaking symposiums and an empowerment center, right? And put one in Finland and Sweden, and just put them all over the world, right? Because
need them everywhere.
This is the stuff that helps people and changes their life. Yeah,
this is it. These places, I would have them instead of schools. I think schools are so outdated. I would rather have these centers rather than a school. And that's because what you're talking about is something that we've got a non-profit here. Well, it's called social enterprise, which is very much like a non-profit. But our plan is to nurture creativity in the youth. So it's like an alternative education platform where we're teaching. Sure. We're bringing the creativity out, so it's very much like we're on the kind of same path, brother. This is going to be, what you're doing is going to be legendary and changing. But not just that, it's the work that you're doing in the community with Boo to Bullying. You're going in, you're going talks to juvenile centres, probation. You're out there in service. So how important is that in service? How important is that for you, being in service to humanity?
I can't even begin to put it into words. I have this kid. It makes me emotional, right? Like, I've been going into the juvenile facility here in Indio for over a year now, and I met this kid, Andy, while I was in there, and then he was out. He got out, and I'm also a photographer, so I do photography, which was a hobby that I turned into a business, because you should be able to monetize anything that you love doing. and I'm a big firm believer of monetizing your passion. So I started a photography business, and I was doing a photo shoot, old Artisan Studios in Indio, and this lady walks up. It's just, can I give you a hug? And I looked, I was like, I'm married, lady. she's no. I'm Andy's mom.
Oh,
So I'm like, Andy. Oh, Andy Sands. Yeah. And I gave her a hug, and she was in tears about how the difference that she saw in her son, and he's right over there. And I only know because he just saw you and said, "Dad, Mom, that's him. That's the guy with the mohawk that came into the juvie facility, and he's the reason why I'm doing better in my life." And I mean, we all sat there and cried, and it was such that I had the effect on this kid at 15 years old, that what I'm doing had that effect on him, and now he's becoming an ambassador for my foundation, and he's going to lead the youth development program in the foundation, and his mother is the secretary of my nonprofit foundation. That woman is now on the board of directors.
wow, bro. And this is just the start for you, really, isn't it? This is just where you're starting things now. It's about to go, because your book has launched not that long ago. Was it earlier on this year?
September 1st, yeah.
Yeah, so...
and it's all self-published, and I don't know much about marketing. I don't know. Everything I do is passion. It's passion-based. Everything I do, it has to have passion. I don't care about making millions of dollars. Money is not my driving factor. I have to make money because I have to pay bills, and we have a cat cafe that takes care of our bills in life, and this is all passion work. And so I think it will be very successful because it's passion, right? It's purpose-driven work.
Exactly.
And the success of it isn't in money.
The message is there as well, and the intention for your book is also massive, and that the thing is, it's just released. I've already seen so many good reviews on it. I'll be giving it my good review because I finished it. As I said, I read it in one sitting. Now, I don't read books. I listen to books. Because I couldn't get it on Audible, I had to get it on the Kindle version because of time. By the time I was catching up with you, so I had to get it on Kindle, and I read that in less than a day. I didn't put it down. So it really did.
Well, the Audible version is coming soon. I just got the mic and just got to learn some things on how to upload that, because I'm doing it all myself. Right? I can't afford a studio. I can't afford to go to a professional studio and have all that done. So I got to do it all myself.
I'm the same. I'm doing everything. I'm learning this as I go because, like you said, everything's passion. I don't know how I'm going to make money, but you know what? I'd spent so much time doing stuff that I didn't want to do. The universe was making things so much harder that I had to commit to what I loved, and that's what I'm doing. And even reaching out to you and some of the other guests that I've reached out to, I had so much self-doubt, so much fear. But you know what? I knew that, my message is not going to get there. I can't be of service to anyone if I sit here on my own doing nothing about it. Action has to come
from an empty cup, my friend.
Exactly, brother. So listen, I know I have taken so much of your time
and money will follow. I mean, money's going to come.
Yeah, and regardless. As you said, happiness for me, I am, for the first time in my life, happy where I don't have to take drugs or drink or alcohol in the morning. I'm not got any charges pending against me. I'm not in jeopardy of going to prison. None of that. I am with my family. I'm doing what I love, and I have genuine fulfillment and happiness, and I live an honest life. So the money is going to come, but that's not what my goal is. Like you said, yeah. Yes.
And, my wife always asks that question, and that's a great question I put forth to you and to anybody. If you had unlimited time, unlimited money, what would you be doing?
Oh, I'd be doing
I would be living the life that I live. I would be doing exactly what I'm doing. And so that's how I know I'm living a good life. And if you're not doing that, for anybody that's listening, sit down and answer that question. If I had $10 million and unlimited time, what would I do with my life? And then whatever you end up answering, and you should write this down, write it on paper. And whatever you have written on that paper, stop everything else in your life and just do that.
I agree.
Period.
I agree.
Whether you have the money or not, just go do that.
So because that's actually an exercise I do with my clients when I first sit down with them. That's one of the things I ask them, because most people, if you ask them what they want, they say money, but they don't want money. They want what money will bring them. So it's not the actual money that they want; it's the freedom, the choice, the adventure, whatever. Because if they have money and they can't do anything with it, it's useless.
I feel like the money's just the default answer, right?
Yeah, because they've never dreamt.
Most people can't achieve something because they don't know what they want. Because if you ask them what they want, it's like, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, imagine that you already had it. Then what do you want? Right. And they can't answer it because you don't know what you want. So how can you achieve something in life if you don't know what it is that you want? You have to identify your wants so that you have a goal to pursue. Right. You can't take steps to becoming an actor if you don't know that you want to be an actor. No. You have to identify what you want in order to identify the steps to achieve it.
Exactly. How would you? We'll finish on this, brother. How would you guide people to know what they want? What would you say to them?
Sit down and write it down. Write your obituary.
Write your obituary. Going back to it.
And that will tell you what you want. If you don't know what you want, you will by the time you're done with that. Right? And take it seriously. Take it. Don't just sit down and write it down and be like, oh, okay, there it is. There's steps to that. You have to imagine that you lived to the age you wanted to live to. If I don't die tomorrow, I die when I'm 111, or you die when you're 98, you die when you're 104. You have to imagine what age you die at, and then fill in the gap from this moment until that moment. What are people going to say about you? Yes. And then you'll know what you want out of life.
That's so powerful, brother. Listen, Sonny, I've taken up so much of your time this afternoon, and I've interrupted. You're supposed to be doing your volume episode 2, but I'm going to check out your podcast. And as I said, for anyone who wants to reach out to Sonny and the book, I'll put all the links in the description. I'll put the links for Facebook, the book, Hey White Boy, and any other there, because you know what, it's a story that needs to be heard, and it inspired me more than any. See, I've read so many self-help books because they're self, but the book was something different. It was powerful. It was real life, and it was the journey that it took you on. That journey of healing, which I don't think a lot of books out there explain to how to go deep into the healing and how to overcome it. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people stuck, is the healing journey. And for me, it certainly did for the longest time. So the book for me was, that part alone is worth its weight in gold. Okay.
Well, you know what? The fact that it had that impact on you makes everything worth it, because that's the goal. The goal of this book is just to give people a story that maybe you can find something that I did that makes your life a little easier, or that makes coping or dealing with something just a little bit easier.
There's so many gold nuggets in it. So I thank everybody for listening. And Sonny, I thank you, for your time, your patience today. I know we had a rough and bumpy start, but
anytime, my friend.
And I'm sure going forward, there'll be certainly another episode with you on here if you would come back on, because
I hope so.
I'll be following
you're
this
stuck
journey.
with me now, brother. We're friends, so you're stuck with me now.
I appreciate it, brother. Well, listen, I'll leave it there, and we'll catch up with you next time. I just want to close with a big, massive thank you. See, Project Reinvented has never been about me. It's always been about you, the listener who's looking to improve their life. So with that, I just want to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for not only listening, but your continued support. Project Reinvented wouldn't exist without your presence, so thank you. My goal is to make this as personal to you as possible, so your feedback is invaluable to me, always welcomed and always appreciated. So as we go on this journey together, remember, the art of reinvention doesn't always demand big, massive leaps. See, big change starts with small steps. So think about this. What's one small action you can take today that will reignite your journey of life reinvention? Make that decision to take that step. See, life's a canvas, reinvention's the art, and you're the artist. So start creating. See you next week.